Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Brand Marketing Forum.
Good evening, my name is Yvonne.
And I'm Lauren. We'd like to thank everyone who is joining us tonight.
Tonight, we will be discussing marketing strategies with two of our very special guests, Dr. Vander, Schee, who is a business and marketing professor here at AURORA University, and Dr. Rakas.
Paid for.
However, personal branding is also very essential. It opens a large window of opportunities for college graduate students, for prospective employees to recognize what we have to offer them.
I could not agree more. Today, our first guest is Dr. Vander, Schee, and he will be talking to us about corporate brand marketing.
Let's welcome Dr. Vander, Schee.
Yay!
Thank you for being here.
Hi, thank you so much.
Yeah, glad to come.
Good.
So, Dr. Vander, Schee, how do you define brand marketing?
Well, brand marketing in a formal sense is really any logo, name, or symbol that represents a company to the general public.
So what are some brand marketing strategies that corporations use in order to be successful?
One of the ones that's been effective is when companies consider brand personality. So this is when you take a human characteristic and apply it to a company product or brand. So for example, if I were to say to you, Toyota, what do you think of?
Car.
Fuel-efficient cars.
Fuel-efficient cars.
Right now.
Anything else?
You see their logo. I see the little red with the little T and it's all circular and curvy. I don't know.
Yeah, that's good. Toyota would be pleased to know that you've taken fuel efficiency, that their cars, maybe that they're Japanese, that they've been successful in doing their branding. So that'd be an example of one that does it well.
So what are some companies besides Toyota that are very good with their brand image?
Well, Nike is very good with the simple logo that's just the swoosh, so people identify it right away just by seeing it. They don't even need to include the word Nike. You mentioned Starbucks earlier. They're also good with their brand positioning, that people know it's a comfortable place to visit and get a good premium coffee with free Wi-Fi and other service that make it a good place to visit.
Recently, they used to have Starbucks that went around their logo. What did taking the words off have to do with their marketing perspective, and why did they do that?
That's a good question. A number of companies start off with a more elaborate logo that includes the word so people can know what the company is. Then with time, the company logo takes its own identity, where they can just take the word off and they still have the same logo that people identify. In fact, the siren that's in the Starbucks logo used to be much more elaborate. They've simplified the look, and so it's easy to replicate and people recognize it. So other examples include Kentucky Fried Chicken. It's now just KFC. Nike had the swoosh I mentioned. They take the word off. It's still there. Those are some of the main ones. Pepsi's even done that. They used to have Pepsi Cola. Now it's just the three colors that form of a circle.
So what can you tell us about the difference between Starbucks marketing or Dunkin' Donuts?
Yeah, they're very different. They position themselves in a way, we talked about Starbucks already, that they like to see themselves as a premium brand where people to go to socialize and maybe to study, but also to spend time in a nice environment. Dunkin' Donuts has used the America Runs on Dunkin', so it's more of an in and out, quick service, more of a value-based brand that people can identify as just kind of your everyday type of place to visit. They'd almost view Starbucks as a little pretentious to say that they're more elite, but Dunkin' Donuts is for everyone.
And which one is your favorite?
I don't drink coffee, so I'm afraid.
You're just like me.
But Starbucks has the teas too.
Well, I'm more with the soft drink, so I would go with I'm a Pepsi person.
Oh.
So that helps.
So how do you feel about the Pepsi reinventing their image with the throwback Pepsis? Is that kind of a good marketing strategy that they had, to go back to just the sugar in it rather than all the chemicals?
Well, a number of companies find that when their product is in the mature stage of the product life cycle, so although they sell millions of units, they're not necessarily growing or gaining market share. They may modify the product or their branding of the product to try to reinvigorate the brand. And I think Pepsi and Coke both do that by adding flavors, different composition to the beverage to try to keep interest and to maybe generate some new users who are just in the age where they start drinking soft drinks.
So to get away from drinks, we talked about Tom's earlier too, and we mentioned that they donate a pair of shoes for every pair that somebody buys. Now, obviously it's a good cause, but what else do they do that makes it so successful and such just a company that people want to be a part of and help?
I think Tom's really connects with their customers in a way that makes it personal. so that they bring, I think it's maybe 15 people a year to come with them to another country to help give the shoes away. So they see the impact of what their purchases are doing. So it's not just a transaction, but it's more a relationship. So Threadless is another company that spends time taking designs online. People vote for them, and the ones that are most highly rated then actually get produced. And so they're another one that's has a good involvement with their customers. You mentioned Tom's is doing something good. It's kind of a social entrepreneurship venture where they want to give back to the community. And another company that does that well is Honest Tea. So they do the iced tea blends. And they're ones that right from the beginning donated some of their money to, even before they were profitable, they were giving money to organizations or people who were in need. And so they try to specifically buy their supplies from those areas as part of their business.
So involving community and building relationship with customers, that's a really good thing to do to help expand your market.
I'm kind of very skeptical. Who gains more, the company or the customer?
I think both gain from a relationship with a good branding strategy. The company, obviously, because they get good word of mouth, and consumers because they feel good about making a purchase. They're not just doing something for themselves, but they do something for someone else.
With being skeptical, do you think branding companies usually lie?
Well, that's a good question. You might feel like they only have their best interest in mind. And a company is a for-profit entity, so their goal is to make money. But I would shy away from the idea that companies lie or intentionally deceive customers. In the short term, that may work, but long term, they're not going to build loyalty to their brand, and so they probably won't exist very long. Thus, I think they don't do that intentionally.
So how can you rejuvenate an old brand?
Yeah, that's a good question. There can be brands that have been around for a long time, Barbie or Lego.
Gap.
Gap's been around a long time.
JCPenney is now going away from the coupons. That's probably the biggest one right now.
I was going to say that's a good example. JCPenney, if we were to think of their brand personality, it'd be discounts, coupons.
Right.
Yeah.
Kohl's is kind of like that too. So JCPenney has taken the approach that they're no longer going to have discounted, more lower prices, and we'll see if that really works. Their customers are kind of weighing those options. They like that, getting a deal, even though they recognize it was probably overpriced to start with.
Right, that's how my grandma is actually. She's one of those people who just thrive on coupons. So do you think maybe Kohl's will take some of JCPenney's business just because they have the coupons too and they're kind of competitive? They're both reasonably priced.
True. Well, JCPenney found that only 2% of their sales actually were at full price. That 60% of their sales were from items that were marked off by at least 60%. So from a profit perspective, they weren't doing that great, even though they may have been outselling Kohl's. I think Kohl's might take a wait-and-see approach to see will customers move over to them because they like feeling like they're getting a great deal. And like you said, there are a lot of people who like to collect coupons or only shop when prices are lower. And you can get some really good deals when those are in place.
What about Gap? I heard they actually rejuvenated their old logo, but something went wrong. What do you think went wrong?
Well, they had a logo for a long time. They made the change to the kind of the new generation. It looked 1980s. Yeah. That lasted a week. Customers didn't really resonate with that look. They felt like it wasn't with their generation, even though it was called the Gap generation or next generation, I think it was. So they went back to their original. Sales picked up and people seem more comfortable with just the things that they do well instead of trying to branch out in other areas that they're not really known for.
So Gap is one of those places that endorses a lot of celebrities and famous people, especially in magazines. How important is it to have somebody well-known representing your brand? I
don't think that's essential. There are many companies who don't use a celebrity endorsement. They connect to consumers in a different way. It could just be someone who's just like them. So it's someone who isn't a celebrity. Just customers feel like they have a connection with that person that they are using. So either can work, just depends on how you're doing it effectively. The risk with a celebrity is if they do something in their personal professional life that doesn't sit well with the general public, that can tarnish the image of the brand.
Like Tiger Woods with Nike.
Well, yes, and they kept Tiger Woods as an endorser, but they didn't include him in any of the advertising. Okay. So they wanted to just focus on his performance in golf and not, what was going on in his personal life.
Speaking of celebrities, I have to ask this just one last question. What about the Kardashians? Can anyone just make a brand out of themselves these days?
It seems like it with social media, there's that opportunity, but I think there's a difference between being popular for a little while and actually establishing a brand. So for college students who want to graduate and establish their own brand identity, I think doing that online, you really can do very well with a professional online presence. So you can build a LinkedIn account and other forms of social media where people see you having a particular interest and experience in one focused area.
So do a lot of corporate brands look at profiles, like when people are hiring, like LinkedIn or Facebook or any of those?
Absolutely. The most recent conference I took marketing students to, we had 3 human resource professionals there, and that question was asked. They said that's the first thing they do. They look at Facebook and LinkedIn. If you're not on LinkedIn, it goes to the side. If you're on Facebook,
really?
they want to see what you have posted on Facebook.
Wow.
So they recognize Facebook's more for social fun, but it is a reflection of who you are. Whereas LinkedIn is your professional presence. So it's almost a standard that you should have an account there.
That makes a lot of sense.
But we're going to talk more about this with
Yeah.
our next guest, Professor Rakas. So thank you for being here with us.
Thank you
It's
so
been
much.
great. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.
Okay.
All right, thanks.
It was
All right.
lovely having you.
you.
So from the corporate world to product branding to even personal branding, branding has become very essential for every customer's purchasing decision. But in the past few years, personal branding has been exhaustively talked about. However, the difference between 10 years ago and now is that the rise of the social technologies, which have made branding not only more personal, but within reach.
So while many people think that personal branding is just for celebrities such as Britney Spears, Paris Hilton, or any of those other people who are in the media all the time, we are all a brand. Each of us is a brand. Yvonne's a brand, I'm a brand, your brand, everybody is. So as a brand, we can leverage the same exact strategies that these celebrities use in order to make yourself effective in the workplace and marketable to other people and possible employers.
So next, we're going to welcome our next guest, Professor Rakas. So you can start thinking about what face you want to show to the world, and you can start thinking how you want to position your success. Welcome,
Okay.
Professor Rakas.
Welcome.
Hi, girls.
Hi.
Nice to see
Thank
you.
you for being here.
Thank you so
Representing
much.
your brands well.
Oh, thank you. I'm so happy you could join us today.
Happy to be here.
Perfect.
So how do you describe personal branding?
Personal branding is essentially when we market ourselves, we're always selling ourselves. So it's essentially you as the brand, much like Coca-Cola or Starbucks. You guys had me really craving some coffee talking back there. I am a coffee drinker, so I was like, stop talking about coffee. But yeah, just like we market any good or service, we are our marketing vehicle. So personal branding is what we put forward.
So it is said that your self-impression equals how people perceive you. How true do you think that is, or is not?
I think it's absolutely true. I definitely subscribe to the philosophy that perception is reality, and unfortunately, though we don't like to admit it, it is a human reaction. We do it on in our brain before we can even comprehend what we're doing. We judge a book by its cover, so we're automatically having that process go on. So yes, perception is absolutely reality.
So what are some tools that we can use to market ourselves out there besides Facebook and LinkedIn?
Other tools, I think you have to think about your network always, and not just a social network. A network is any group of people that are a part of your professional world. So teachers, other work experiences that you've had. Your network is going to be your best marketing vehicle. So your reputation is something you have to build the whole time through. That reputation is going to come through in every single thing that you choose to do and choose not to do. So emails you haven't responded to or phone calls you haven't returned. Those are choices that you've made that are absolutely creating an image. And if you don't work to develop that brand for yourself, someone will develop that image for you. So you want to take control of what you're putting forward.
So speaking of phone calls that we don't answer back, what about if, let's say, we apply for a job but we're not interested anymore? Should we call back and let them know that we're not interested anymore?
Yes, because really, if you think about that, think about the reputation, think about your image. If I am my brand, even if I don't want that job, on a professional level, there's certain etiquette that we have to adhere to. And there's a graciousness and a polite way of going about that that's going to speak volumes for you as a person. If you call yourself a reliable person and don't so much as give someone a phone call or send them a thank you card, is that really contradicting your brand then? And what is that doing to your reputation?
That is so true.
So once, say you tarnished your reputation, not like in a big way, but say you did something inappropriate in an interview, how would you go about fixing that for your personal brand? I know that's a weird question.
No, Lauren, it's a great question, but I want to get more specific. Give me some context for inappropriate in an interview, because my mind goes to a lot of different places.
Say that you accidentally call your interviewer dude or something,
Oh
just
God.
verbal, just like you just have a total
Run!
brain lapse.
Yeah, especially,
Right.
especially I'm sorry, Lauren, especially now that they're texting you to confirm interviews.
Right.
I find that very creepy. Like, I don't know how to respond back. Maybe because, I don't know, I get so used to texting, like, one words or, like, one letter text, like you. And I'm just, like, trying to be, like, very professional. Like, and I'm like, why are they texting me anyway?
Yes, and you have to, in part, adapt to the environment that we're in right now. And this is the world that you especially are coming into in the work world. So you have to make that separation between social and professional. And I think, your last guest made a good distinction there between LinkedIn, for instance, being a professional network, a professional profile, Facebook being more of that social. Employers have that. You have to think in those terms in text messages too. So think, this isn't a Facebook response I'm sending to my, my friend. This is a professional person, and no matter what the medium is, I have to represent my brand always. Because whether you want to or not, your brand can't be removed from you.
So,
it's always there.
So we can hide anything from prospective employees. Like, we put our Facebook privacies, like we put our Facebook settings on privacy. We can't hide that.
What do you mean?
Like, I heard that even though we put them on privacy, that they still have access to our things on Facebook.
Okay, that might be a little out of my realm. I'm not terribly familiar with that. I know we all have a right to privacy, okay?
Yeah.
We can't be going crazy here trying to hire you. But typically, you have to look at surface value. If someone's really digging on you, you have to be responsible for that. You have to be responsible for not only what you're posting, but what other people are posting as well. Even if you say, well, I didn't post that picture, well, it's on your Facebook page. So it's your responsibility to constantly be conscious of what's being said about you, what you're saying about yourself, verbally or non-verbally, even through pictures. What image are you really creating?
So if a potential employer was to see like a picture of you from spring break, your freshman or sophomore year of college, how would you go about doing damage control on that if they were like, oh, what's this about?
Lauren, part of personal branding is creating character and creating value. And character and value are pretty deep-rooted structures that a picture certainly shouldn't shake too far off. But there again, it's a double-sided sword. You have to be careful because that one picture, oftentimes a good comparison I give my students a lot of times is you are your brand. So if you cut your hair, if you start dressing differently, whatever you do, people are going to react to you. So if you have that picture up out of nowhere and you've created this image, it's perception is reality. So people are going to perceive you differently based on that information that they receive. Will it speak completely against and damage your character and value? Hopefully it's strong enough that it balances out and doesn't.
Right.
So you think we should start getting business cards?
Absolutely. I think you should definitely invest in some business cards. And there again, that's all about your brand. Why do I know Starbucks? Because there's one on every corner. Because when I flip on the TV, a delicious frappuccino is being made in front of me, and all of a sudden I'm thirsty. So business cards put that presence out there, and I think that's absolutely important in addition to all of the networking that you have available.
So how do you go about not being too pushy when you meet somebody that could get you in the field? Do you just hand them a business card and introduce yourself? Or introduce yourself first, then hand them a business card and kind of tell them about yourself? Or how do you go about that?
I think that it's always a dance that we do. Sales in general, and especially when you're selling yourself, there's no tougher sale. It seems kind of silly because we think that must be the easiest, and in fact we find it's oftentimes the most difficult. Part of getting yourself out there is building rapport with people. So to go up to someone and say, here's my business card, take a look at it, might be a little aggressive. I think that a much more effective approach would be to build some rapport. Hi, I'm so-and-so, look around the place, see what they have going on, see what their brand is communicating, and try to make a connection there so that you become an actual person that will in turn become that brand to that person.
Good question. Good answer, I mean. So would you recommend us going to different mixers and like business after hours type things and getting involved with different seminars and just networking with business people?
I do think going to network events is absolutely impactful, especially if you're looking for a job or looking for a career change, if you're already in a job. It's all about visibility. I can't stress that enough. You know something because it's put in front of you. You hear about it, you see it. You are your brand, okay? So if you compare it to a product or a service, your product name, my product name is Erika Rakas. So who is Erika Rakas? I'm always monitoring that. So yes, getting out there, networking appropriately in ways that get that image that you want, you have to ask yourself, what do I want to be perceived as, or who do I want to be perceived as? And make sure your behaviors are always accompanying that. And if you're networking and making sure you have appropriate behaviors, you're in a good place.
So what is your number one networking technique?
Number one networking technique?
The one that always works for you.
Oh gosh, that's kind of a loaded question. I think that, you know, with your generation, definitely the social resume is an important element. There's, you know, talk now, a lot of buzz about these, that if you create a really good, optimal social media resume, that you will never essentially have to make another resume again. And part of that is establishing yourself, getting that presence, creating a website. There are tools, even for people who aren't necessarily technologically inclined, to get help that they need to build a website. Part of that is picking the right URL, right? So I would want mine to be erikarakas.com, not cool girl at, you know, whatever.
Right.
That right away, what's that product name? You are the product. So going forward with that, I think it's important to make sure your design and all of that is accompanying that. Finally, with the social media resume, I think you should try to use multimedia. There's a huge trend right now, especially using multimedia. And, you know, for instance, the 30-second pitch is something that I personally like. And that is, if I were a recruiter or an employer looking at your website, to have that voiceovered 30-second pitch, why should you continue reading about me? Why should you want to even look at me? That 30-second pitch, I think, is absolutely essential in today's what's the best way to network. I think that is an exceptional way to network.
But
go ahead.
I was just asking, does it work for everybody? What about doctors? You know, it works for us, especially because we're communication students, but what about doctors, nurses?
It's not limited. Every single individual is a unique product in themselves. They are their own brand. So there's no limit to who can brand themselves and get themselves out there. Speaking of doctors, I know right now there's a huge trend with something called ZocDoc, booking doctor appointments online. This is a way to actually, you can look at these doctors' profiles. You can pick your own appointments. There's an appointment book. So there is certainly a field for, or a market for doctors and other professionals.
So what would you include in this 30-second pitch, just for our viewers? Like, obviously your name, what else?
Oh boy. Well, putting me on the spot here. In a 30-second pitch, I think it's almost like an objective statement that you would write on a written paper resume, but this is your voice, this is you. So if I said, sell me Lauren in 30 seconds or sell me Yvonne in 30 seconds, what would you say? And a lot of times we don't even develop that. We don't think about, what do I have to offer or what makes me valuable? It's easy to write things like highly motivated and all of this, but who are you really? And that comes through in a voice. So I think what makes you valuable, what makes you stand out, and something that creates that brand image of who Lauren is, who Yvonne is.
So to sum up everything, what are your 3 top tips with everything we just discussed for college students out there?
I think absolutely being authentic. Authenticity can't be overdone. A lot of times, speaking of that, you know, if you say, for instance, I'll back up. A lot of times we put on a resume things that sound really good. What happens is those things don't always match our actual personality traits. Well, if you're selling me, just like you're selling a product, We all know what that feels like when you get sold a product and then you get it home, hello, infomercial.
Doesn't work.
And you're like, this does not work the way they said it would on the infomercial. Well, the same is true for people. So if you go in and you've got all this written out and the interviewer is interviewing you or someone is viewing your brand, via online, if it doesn't match, it's going to stand out. So you have to be authentic. Every single person has something uniquely valuable about themselves. So it's your job in part of marketing yourself to find out how to maximize that. What makes me, me, right? Not in comparison to anyone else. What makes me uniquely valuable to this company? You said 3 things. That's one. 2, I think I can't stress visibility enough. You're not going to know something if it's not in front of your face. You've got to be out there. Put your business cards, go network, be online. Constantly put yourself out there so that it's no question when your name pops up. You look at Bethany Frankel right now. It says Skinny Girl. Skinny
She's
Girl
a
seems
genius.
like it blew up, but look at everywhere she is. Her brand is on her car. It's on the clothes she wears. It's
Her books.
She's drinking it. Her books. Yes, everywhere she goes, you associate Skinny Girl with Bethany Frankel, and it's made her hugely successful. So what is it that what's your Skinny Girl, essentially? And lastly, you have to work hard. A lot of times I hear students say, oh, well, I'm on there, or I put my stuff on this. You have to do it every day. I can promise you, I'm going to really disappoint you. I'm going to really burst your bubble. Nothing falls into your lap. You have to work for things. People are not panting, waiting for you to pop into their life and saying, oh, thank you, I've been waiting to hire you. You have got to work hard. You've got to do the work. You've got to make sure every single day that brand, you, is being nurtured and is being put out there appropriately.
I guess we gotta start using Twitter.
Right? Twitter, LinkedIn.
Twitter is also, I have to tell you, a lot of employers do look at Twitter just to get some idea of what kind of social presence, what is this person talking about, what are they thinking about. So it's everywhere.
Oh my
we can't
God.
remove it. So
So
you got to
you
be
have-
conscious of
You're
it.
going to be checking your email, your Twitter, your Facebook,
Yeah.
your LinkedIn,
Yeah.
all of that, always connected.
Mm-hmm.
Well, those were awesome tips.
Yes, thank you
and
so much.
Good. Yes. And good luck marketing yourself.
Everything
Thank
was
you for
perfect.
being with
Thank
us.
you so much. It was
Absolutely,
great
ladies.
to see you.
Nice to see you again.
Nice to see
Take
you.
care.
Thank you. So there you have it. Personal branding is just as important as corporate branding. I hope you were able to take notes and distinguish good branding from terrible branding. So, and we hope that you'll build a positive image for yourself.
Thank you for being with us, and I hope you enjoyed today's topic. Until next time.
Be the best brand you can be.